Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Meredith Williams from the Capacity Collective. In this video, we show you how to use the Best Starts for Kids culturally responsive measurement tool, protective factors, or the CRMT-PF. We will call it the CRMT for short. It was created by the Capacity Collective and the King County Best Starts for Kids initiative, and it was tested and validated in diverse communities across King County, Washington. If you are not already familiar with the CRMT, you will want to learn more about it by watching the video Introduction to the CRMT-PF. In this video, we will talk about how to understand and use the scores you get from administering the CRMT-PF. If you haven't already seen the video on how to score the CRMT, you may want to watch that first. In this video, we will show you what to do with those scores. In the next few minutes, we will discuss how to understand the scores you're getting from the CRMT for families and for your program, and how to score in a way that informs your work with your individual practice and as part of a program or organization. You may first be wondering, what is a good score? We don't suggest thinking about scores as good or bad, especially as the CRMT is designed to be a strengths-based tool. Families have really different things going on in their lives, and there are many reasons to get a particular score at any point in a family's life. Rather than thinking of scores as good or bad, we recommend looking at your scores holistically as a snapshot of how families are doing on average, then looking to see if families are scoring above or below the group on average. As you've seen in the scoring video, all of the questions in the CRMT are scored on a scale of 0 to 4. The closer the average is to 4, the higher the family is scoring on that protective factor. We suggest using your program averages to decide as a team what constitutes a cutoff score based on your goals and how your families are doing on average. We recommend testing the tool with your families for a month or two to see what is the average for the families you serve. When you are able to see what those averages are across your families, a number might emerge as a natural cutoff. As we said before, you can then think about family scores as above average or below average. And that becomes how you decide to provide extra interventions like additional resources or referrals. Keep in mind that the scores for each section will probably not have the same average. Find the family average for each section of the tool you are using and treat that as your cutoff for that protective factor. In this example, let's say your program's average score is 2.75 in the family resilience section. That is on a scale of 0 to 4. As a program, you may decide that this is your cutoff score. If a family scores a 3, that would put them above your average or your cutoff score for this protective factor. If a family scored a 2, that is below the average and may be an opportunity to provide additional resources or supports. You will also want to revisit your average scores every year or so to see if you need to adjust your cutoff score as things change in the communities you serve. Let's look at a family's protective factor scores as an example. Here we have an average score for each of the protective factors in the last row in orange text. When you apply the averages to the family scores, you can see who scored above average, average, or below the group average for each protective factor. For concrete supports, the average is 2.38. Families 3 and 4 scored above the group average in several of the protective factors. And families 1 and 2 scored below the group average. This is great information for supporting your individual families. Seeing that family 1 scored substantially below the group average on concrete supports, perhaps this family needs referrals, resources, or support accessing resources. This is also great information to have so you can decide where you may want to provide those additional resources and supports to all clients, or where you may want to add or change aspects of your programming. If you can see that all or most of your families have scores below a 3 in any protective factor, you may want to consider changes in programming for everyone. For this group, for example, perhaps you'd increase your efforts to connect all new families with concrete supports. Another powerful way to use the CRMT data is to look at how families are doing compared to other families. You can use this to see if your program is working better for some families versus other families, or if there are particular groups that could use more or different supports. In this example, we are looking at average scores for families grouped by their housing status. This shows the average scores for families who are housed and for families who are unhoused. As you can see, the unhoused group is scoring higher on family resilience, but lower on several other sections. This is good information for you because it gives you an opportunity to provide an intervention. In this example, perhaps what you would do is make sure you are providing additional resources or supports for your unhoused clients. In this example, we are grouping the families by family structure. Here, it appears that single parents are doing well compared to their counterparts in family resilience, knowledge of parenting and child development, and social supports. And two-parent families are doing better with concrete supports and with relationships between the caregiver and program staff. Teen parents, on the other hand, are scoring lower on average on 4 of the 5 protective factors. As a group, they may need more or different supports. Having these scores gives us a few possible intervention points. For example, your program may want to look at the resources and supports you offer your teen parents and think about how you can support them differently or refer them to another program or resource. Second, you may want to look at the relationship you or your program staff have with teen parents. Maybe you have a staff that does really well with teen parents, and you can adjust caseloads accordingly. There are dozens of ways you can look at data like this to give you suggestions on how you can improve your program. The data can also help you demonstrate your impact. In this example, we are looking at scores for one family over time. They have taken the CRMT every 6 months, and this is what their scores have looked like. You can see that the family did not take the 5th section when they took the survey the first time, since they had not yet been working with program staff. This is another way of looking at the data, perhaps easier for some to read because it shows you a visual of change over time. You can see here that there has been an overall small increase in most of the protective factors. The yellow line is the average. It's just the orange line representing concrete supports that has consistently been lower than the other protective factors. And in the past 6 months, for this family, the concrete support score has fallen quite a bit. Again, this is good information to have. It may be that this family needs some additional resources to support their concrete needs. How you look at data over time is looking to see how scores have changed. If this was the second time the family was taking the CRMT, you'd subtract the first score from the second score. On the third time, you'd subtract the first score from the third score, whichever is newest. In this example, we are subtracting the first score from their 4th score from April 2026. Across all 5 protective factors, the scores have had some change, ranging from a 0.25 change on social supports, as well as knowledge of parenting and child development, to a full point change for family resilience. As we saw with the line chart in the previous slide, there has been a decrease in concrete supports for this family. When you calculate these numbers, if you get a positive number, the scores have gone up, or that protective factor has been strengthened since the family has been in your program. If you get a negative number, the score has gone down, or that protective factor has become weaker since the family has been in your program. As with other calculations, this data can provide opportunities to make adjustments to your programming. In this case, our family may need some supports with their concrete supports. It's also helpful to notice that their scores had been increasing between October 2024 and April 2025, but then fell for the next 2 rounds. and now they are even lower than where they started. This could be a helpful conversation starter with that family to see what is going on. Looking at your group scores over time can also be helpful. In this example, we are looking at the change in scores for 4 different families. This means all 4 families have at least one post-test they took after their pre-test. If this is just their second time taking the CRMT, they won't have a change in score for the parent-caregiver program staff relationship. Looking at the far right column to look at the data by family, in this example, 3 out of 4 families had an increase in their scores. In fact, the average increase across all protective factors, all families, is 0.38. Looking by the protective factors, you can see that as a group, this sample program has seen an increase in scores for 2 of the protective factors, while concrete supports have remained steady, and social supports has made a small decrease on average. Again, this gives us opportunities to look critically at our programs to see where we are doing well and where we can grow. You can also look at average change by groups using demographic or other data about the families. In this example, we are looking at the change in scores people have experienced between their pre-test and post-test, this time breaking down those scores by families who graduated the program, families who exited the program without graduating for whatever reason, and those who lost contact without officially exiting the program. In this example, everyone completed at least 3 rounds of the CRMT, so we have their caregiver program staff relationship scores to see how those changed over time. Looking across the family's exit reasons, it looks like families who graduate have had the most increases in their protective factors. Families who leave the program still have a boost to their protective factors on average, which shows that you may be having an impact on families even if they don't make it to graduation. For families that lose contact, there is a drop in protective factors across almost all of the factors. Where there was a positive change was in knowledge of parenting and child development. Whether or not they are in your program, that is a positive change that can be helpful for families. If that family's scores are going down over time in the future, hopefully we can learn from this and have some interventions in place. Looking at the data this way is informative because you can see that while on average there is a slight increase in the caregiver program staff relationship, for the families who graduated, that was a big increase. And for those who exited for other reasons, it was still an increase. It's the families who lost contact that pulled down the average. Maybe relationships have an impact on whether families are not finished the program. This gives us pieces to the puzzle of how best to serve the evolving needs of our families. You can learn more about the culturally responsive measurement tool, Protective Factors, by following the link in the QR code or in the intro to this video. The links take you to the Best Starts for Kids blog, where you can find the most up-to-date information about the tool and the resources available to support using the tool. That includes additional videos, a scoring calculator, quick guides, translations of the tool, and much more. Thank you for the work you do in the community to help families thrive.